Question 3. This question focuses on sentence structure with punctuation. Now, in order to determine the correct punctuation needed, you really must understand the difference between an independent and dependent clause. Let's talk about determining independent and dependent clauses. Before you can master commas, semicolon, and even verb agreement, you must know the difference between an independent and a dependent clause. An independent clause can stand alone as a sentence. So let's take, for example, the boy over there. Well, this is not a sentence. There isn't even a verb. Let's give it a verb. Well, it could be an action verb. The boy over there climbed a tree. Or it could be a non-action verb. The boy over there is tall for his age. Now, a lot of people will say that's all you have to do to decide if it's independent. Is there a subject and a verb? Well, what if I put while in front of that? While the boy over there climbed a tree. We still have the subject boy and we still have climbed as the verb, but while is an indicator that what we have is a dependent clause. And the best way to tell is if when you read it, wow, the boy over there climbed a tree, you feel like you're missing something. What? What happened? That's how you know what you are missing is your independent clause. So let's put one in. While the boy over there climbed a tree, the girl set up the lawn game. So, the girl set up the lawn game. That could be its own sentence, and so that's our independent clause. Now I could move the word while over here, and now all of a sudden, the boy over there climbed a tree. That's the independent clause. And while the girl set up the lawn game, that's the dependent clause. There are other words that introduce dependent clauses: while, who, which, that, until, since, because. This is not an exhaustive list, but if you can be on the lookout for these words and other words like it, then it can help you to see those dependent clauses. One more example. Another way that you might introduce a dependent clause is with a word that looks like a verb but isn't. An ing verb sometimes acts as a noun, like arriving late for school. That's not the verb. The verb is actually missed. Jonah missed the quiz. That's the independent part. So the key is to look for words that introduce a dependent clause and to ensure that your independent clauses have a subject and a verb, but also make logical sense when they stand alone. Let's go back to question 3. While silly examples can help one to remember the importance of punctuation, well, that's definitely a dependent clause. It has the while, and that means that it can't have a semicolon. Like in option A, you put a semicolon after an independent clause. It also can't have a comma and, like in option B, because that is also something that you do after an independent clause. Come to think of it, option C has a period as though it's the end of a sentence. This should bring pause. You should look at these answers and say, well, how could I possibly decide between A, B, and C? They're all basically the same option, which means since they can't all be right, they must all be wrong. And they are. Choice D uses a comma after the introductory dependent clause, and then the independent clause follows. And this is why D is our best answer.